Welcome to the MFR Coaches podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the MFR Coaches podcast. I'm joined by someone you might recognize from an earlier episode, Laura Jawad. Laura was most recently on the podcast during episode 185 called Why You Want to Be on Top with SEO Expert Laura Jawad. So Laura, welcome back to the program. I'm super happy to have you. One of the reasons I'm so excited to have you is because not only are we going to talk about SEO today, which we've talked about in the past, but you're also coming into my foundations program to do a live training and implementation session with my students in my program. And that group is all about helping MFR therapists to get fully booked and be profitable. And SEO is such an important piece of that. So today, our listeners get a sneak peek of the kind of high-level support that we bring into that program. Laura, welcome back to the show. I'm so happy you're here for this discussion.
Thank you so much, Heather. It is always so much fun to have the opportunity to come back onto a podcast.
Yeah, it's fun. This is going to be totally different than our first episode. One of the things that I love about the way you teach SEO specifically is that you make it feel doable. When you come into my foundations group, you're not just going to talk theory, you're helping them to actually implement on the theory. Can you share a little bit about what you'll be walking them through in that session and why implementation is such a game changer for local practices?
Yeah, so we're going to talk more specifically about how myofascial release therapists can get found on Google when myofascial release might not be mainstream language, right? Mm-hmm. When their clients might not know that they need them yet. And so we're going to cover 3 signals that Google cares a lot about: relevance, proximity, credibility. We're going to go into detail for each of those. And I'm going to show you why that perhaps lower search volume for the thing that they do is actually a really big advantage when it comes to showing up or being discoverable in search.
Cool. When someone searches something like a phrase like myofascial release near me or pain relief in their city, what makes one clinic show up higher in their search results than another?
So especially with brick and mortar businesses, local businesses, Google's really weighing relevance, trust, and credibility. So relevance comes down really to the keywords and content on the website, right? Do those words match the thing that the person is searching for, the type of clinic that they're searching for, the type of practitioner? But then there is trust, and there's a few pieces of that, right? Like one piece of that is, are there reviews? Right? Like, are people leaving reviews? Are they responding to reviews? But there's also, do other businesses link back to that business, right? Because those are trust signals. So really Google is looking to see if both, colleagues essentially, as well as past consumers trust this business. And then the last one is proximity. So how close that business is to the person searching. And so the results that I see if I were to Google like myofascial release therapist near me, those results are going to look very different. I'm in Redmond, Washington. Those are going to look really different than the results that someone in Seattle, which is, a couple miles away, it'll look really different than the results that they see. So really it's, do you have the right words? Are you using the right words in the right ways? Do you have trust signals? And then when it comes down to it, who's the closest?
Got it. Okay, very interesting. What are the most important SEO basics a local MFR therapist should set up to make sure clients can actually find them online?
This could potentially be a big question, right? So the Google business profile is a non-negotiable. And that's not what we call an on-page signal. So that has nothing to even do with your website. But from a local SEO perspective, from the perspective of like getting discovered in the search results, that Google Business Profile is essential because that's what even makes you eligible to show up in the map pack, in those listings underneath the map. If you don't have a Google Business Profile, you will not show up there. No matter how good you are, how relevant you are, you have to have the Google Business Profile and you have to fill it out completely. And so actually something I noticed, and I'm going to ask you to rein me in because I'll go down a tangent here.
Okay, I'll do my best.
In preparation for this episode, I spent some time going down Google rabbit holes, as I do. And something that I noticed is a lot of MFR practitioners don't fill out the services section on their Google Business Profiles, right? Like you have an option to list specific services you offer. And the people who are listed first in those near me searches have filled out that information. So it's important to have the Google Business Profile. It's also important to double check that you've filled it out completely. You've provided as much information as you can.
Okay. I wonder if this is because for the longest time, the service options like are just massage, like there's not
that's like a category.
Okay.
So that's different.
Okay.
So there's categories, and those are, I did check actually, there's no myofascial release category.
Right.
So, your students, your therapists, they're going to be listing themselves depending on their primary specialty, a physical therapist, a massage therapist.
Okay.
That's how they'll categorize themselves. But then there's an additional layer where you can list specific services. Because it seems like most myofascial release therapists, they offer a number of modalities or a number of services, right? And so they have the opportunity there to list each one individually, which is going to highlight them in those search results. For any one of those, it'll be an advantage to have listed them. Is that something
they can just manually type in? It's not choosing from it. So this is where they would put in the words myofascial release 60 minutes or something like that.
And I'm guessing that if you didn't know that feature of the profile exists, neither do all of your students. And so I would encourage folks to go and double check your profiles and make sure you have filled that in. Because that is an advantage in those results. So in terms of those SEO basics, the Google profile is really, really important. Then there's your website, right? And on the website, the things you want to think about, again, because so many myofascial release therapists offer a variety of modalities, you need to make sure you have, if you are in particular trying to get found for myofascial release, you need to have a dedicated page for it. It's not enough to just list myofascial release as one of your modalities on a generic services page. So if you're serious about promoting your myofascial release work, create a page on your website for that modality. And then make sure you have the SEO basics checked off for it, right? You've used the phrase myofascial release in your SEO title, in the H1 heading, in some of your image titles. You've provided some content on the page about what myofascial release is, what it does. You can have some FAQs, right? Make sure it's robust. And so it doesn't look like an afterthought to Google and to your searchers, right?
Okay. Yeah, very important. And I think for the most part, like the people that are listening here and that work with me, like they are mostly MFR only. So while their training is like physical therapy or occupational therapy or massage therapy or nurses, which is like the bulk of the group now, and speech and language pathology as well, like maybe specifically like for my speech people, I have this one woman in the group right now. She's amazing and she does not want to compromise her speech modality, right? But she is also like myofascial release only. So she's like bringing the two together. And like if a kid needs traditional speech therapy, she's ready to jump in there and give the speech therapy, but through that myofascial release lens. So she's got like the speech information on her page, but it's all myofascial release focused. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So then on that services page, making sure that myofascial release is in those important places. It's in the H1 heading. That's that above the fold headline on the page. So you're not just writing services up there.
Got it.
right? Like maybe you're writing myofascial release therapy for speech,
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's going in the SEO title, which is the snippet that people see when they actually see your website in the search results. It's like the text in the blue link.
Yep.
And that is a ranking signal that Google uses. It's a very important piece of information to fill out. And then also putting it in some of your image titles, talking about it on the page, right? Which, that might sound like trivial advice, but it gets overlooked a lot. People forget to use the words. Make sure you're using the words. And then also using the words on the homepage, right? If it's a major focus of your practice, put it in your homepage headline too.
Yeah.
Right.
I just think this is so vital to know, is like, instead of having the top of your page say services, just like have it say myofascial release options.
And I would make it more specific, right? Especially if you're in a market with multiple myofascial release practitioners, then you want to be
which is pretty rare.
Which is pretty rare, right?
It does happen, and it's happening more and more.
Yeah, that's your mission, right? To like grow this as a mainstream practice. So being as specific as you can in those titles, like myofascial release for ... And actually one of the things I'll show in the workshop is how many searches people are making for those specific combinations. Myofascial release for TMJ, back pain, neck tension, whatever it is, there is search volume behind these very specific myofascial release for condition searches. So put those words on your page and put them in the places that make it look like that's the important focus, right? Like the headlines.
Perfect. Okay. I think you answered that very, very well without going down a rabbit hole. So let's talk. We're going to kind of bounce back to the Google business profile and maps that we touched on earlier. I think I know the answer to this, but how important is Google business profile for brick and mortar practices, and what are the most overlooked features therapists should be using?
It's essential, right? I think we have kind of hit that one on the head. Most overlooked features. So in general, service-based providers need to fill this out completely. I would say that's the major mistake I see, is that people will set one up, but they kind of half-ass it. They kind of do the minimum, but you really want to fill in all of the features, right? Go back and double check. Maybe they've added features since you set it up. And so again, the services and your service descriptions are super important. And Google's really inconsistent about what information they show in the Google business profile, depending on whether you're looking at mobile or desktop, or the type of category you're in. So for example, when I went and looked at myofascial release therapist on desktop, it didn't show the services explicitly, but it had this check mark that said myofascial release provided. So it like pulled out that service. Whereas on mobile, it actually shows all the services. So just fill it out, even if you don't think it matters, because it does. Photos are really important. It's trust and conversion, right? And so I'd be showing pictures of your face, showing pictures of your storefront so people know where they're going, pictures of your treatment rooms. If you've got staged photos of you working on clients, include those, but photos are great. And if you can update photos over time, even better. Something that is really, really underutilized in general, there's 2 content sections on a Google business profile. Okay. So there's posts, which are like social media posts, and you can post updates, you can post your offers, you can post snippets of blog posts, right? There's all kinds of things that you can post there. But they serve to, one, keep your profile active, because Google cares about that. And it's more content for the search engines, more context. So it's more opportunities to get found. There's also a Q&A section. And this is also something that's really underutilized. And one reason I think is people don't realize they can seed their own Q&As, or you can have a friend submit them if you feel funny about seeding your own Q&As. But I would be using it. You probably know what your listeners, your students probably know what questions people are frequently asking them about MFR, right? But what do I wear to an MFR therapy session, right? Is MFR the same as massage? Is MFR, there's search volume behind, is MFR painful, by the way, right? Like people want to know. And so these are questions that you can put in those FAQs. And more context for the search engines. It's a higher level of service for your searchers, and it keeps that profile fresh. So
it's really good. And then people can just take that from their website. If you already have an FAQ on your website, you can literally just
I would put those FAQs on the bottom of your service page too.
Yeah. Okay. Smart. But you could just literally copy and paste that stuff into your Google listing. Like you're not having to go and like think of new questions and think of new answers. Like you've already done the work. So
easy. Yeah.
So good. Okay. Anything else to add to that? I cut you off.
This isn't a feature so much as just a practice, but make sure you're responding to reviews on Google Business Profile. That's something that Google likes to see. So if you're asking people to leave reviews there, and if they're leaving reviews, good or bad, you should be responding to them in a reasonable amount of time. It's something I'm not great at, right? I know it can be like hard to remember to go in and do that.
Yeah.
But if someone took the time to leave a review, then it's nice to take the time to acknowledge it. And if you have a bad review and it happens, like just respond to it professionally, but make sure you're responding to them.
Yeah. At least like acknowledge the bad one. Yes. Okay, great. All right. What role do reviews play in SEO, and how should therapists ethically and effectively ask clients to leave reviews that help them rank higher? Have you ever wished your business felt more predictable? Like you could count on your income instead of crossing your fingers each month or worrying how you're going to always pay your bills? That's exactly what we do inside my Beyond 100K Mastermind. It's designed for MFR therapists who are already fully booked or pretty close and are ready for the next steps in creating a calm and profitable business. The promise is simple. In 6 months, you'll create at least 5 figures in extra profit and have the systems to keep repeating it. And here's the exciting part. I'm hosting a free live webinar called How to Build Predictable Profit in Unpredictable Times. You can join me Sunday, November 2nd in the afternoon or Wednesday, November 5th in the evening, whichever works better for your schedule. Can't make it live? Don't worry, you'll get the replay as long as you sign up. After the webinar, doors to the mastermind officially open and you'll be able to reserve your spot for the new round that starts in January. Go to themfrcoach.com/masterclass to save your seat today. Beyond 100K isn't just another program. It's where fully booked therapists learn how to build calm, repeatable profit without working more hours. And I'd love for you to be a part of it.
Okay. Why don't we break this one down into 2 questions? So in terms of what role reviews play in SEO, it's really twofold. They're both a ranking signal and a conversion factor. So with respect to being a ranking signal, the number of reviews, your star rating, how recent your most recent review is in that Google Business Profile, those all impact how you show up in those local results, right? They're a ranking signal. They're also a conversion factor because if you have a competitor with 80 glowing reviews and you have 3, all things being equal, they're going to show up first, or all other things being equal, right? So, and the number 1 spot is going to get the most clicks always, right? But in terms of a conversion factor, people like to see reviews, right? People want to know that other people have worked with you and had a good experience. So both ranking signals and conversion factor. And the cool thing about reviews as well, any reviews on Google Business Profiles should get copied onto your website somewhere. Okay, on homepage, services page, dedicated testimonials page, I don't care. They should go on your website. They're an amazing source of voice of customer language, which also helps with your website SEO, because now you've got words in your customer's language acting as a bridge for future searchers. So they do a lot for you. In terms of how to ask for reviews ethically and effectively, ask, right? Like after a good session, ask. Give them the link. I really like now when I go into, like if I go for a massage, if I go into other service providers and they have like a business card with a QR code that you can just hand people and say, would you mind going here and leaving a link or a review? It makes it so easy, right?
Yes.
And then respond to them. Okay. And in terms of staying ethical, I don't know, mental health therapists can't ask for them. I don't know if there's any considerations in that regard for MFR therapists. I don't think there are, but I would just say don't offer like discounts or gifts in exchange for reviews. Like, make sure you're asking honestly and you are just trying to encourage authentic feedback. I think in terms of ethics, be a human, be a good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that deep. It's like just literally like, how is your experience? Like, what is your world experience of this? Like, tell me everything. I also think it's so good to be open to the feedback from a review. Don't be so afraid of getting a bad review or whatever by asking for reviews. There will always be someone that leaves a weird review, but it doesn't have to be that deep. Some people go and like purposefully read bad reviews just for fun.
Well, and isn't it when you are looking for a service, right? I always find it really interesting to read the provider's responses to poor reviews because I think it says so much about them, right? The way that they handle that feedback and the ones that can handle it with grace, it really says something about them.
Yeah,
says something
and just
good about
acknowledging
them.
it.
Yeah.
There's the people that just ignore it, but I think it's very interesting to read that back. Like, what did they say? Did they actually acknowledge
when it's
it?
responded to well, if the bulk of the reviews are positive, then it does not negatively impact my choice.
Yeah.
Because I understand, like I think most people understand, there's people who are always going to leave a bad review. In terms of the provider, everyone has a bad day sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah. We understand that, but it's the way you handle that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and usually it's because the provider had to enforce a policy or a boundary, and people don't like to have boundaries or policies or to take ownership for no showing or like canceling. So that's usually, I think, where it comes up and like why a lot of providers have a hesitation to enacting a boundary or a policy. And I just think, I think that's why it's important to kind of acknowledge that it's okay if someone leaves you a bad review, you can respond to it, and no one client is going to make or break your business. So it's fine. It's going to be fine. It's much better to ask for those reviews because most of the time they're going to be really, really great and also very helpful for your ranking. Okay. All right. So we covered the Google business profile. We kind of talked about maps, but can you touch on the map again, like the mapping, how the maps work? My understanding of it is if you have your Google profile set up correctly, if someone is searching for you and you're closer to them, you're going to show up higher on the map. So is that more for like mobile or is that for desktop too?
Desktop is localizing search results now as well. So proximity information is just really important.
Yeah. So having that profile fully filled out too, so that it can map you as well. Let's talk about website optimization. For therapists, what are the must-have elements on the homepage to make sure Google and potential clients both know exactly what they do?
So number one is going to be a clear headline, which explicitly contains the service that you are providing. If your main service is myofascial release therapy, then myofascial release therapy should be in that headline. And by the way, it should be myofascial release therapy, not MFR. There's far more search volume behind myofascial release. Your location should be included on your homepage, right? And we can talk more about ways to include those location keywords, but those are very important. The SEO titles, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but that SEO title as well needs to have that explicit service in there as well. In your website, in the homepage copy, you need to talk about who you help, the problem you solve. Obviously, your call to action needs to be really prominent. I actually, for service providers like this, like to recommend having 2 call to action buttons in the hero section. One that leads directly to a booking link, if they can book a service, and the other one for people who want to learn more about services. Because you're going to have some people at different points in their buyer's journey, right? And so you're going to have people who are ready to book a call. You're going to have people who are still exploring. You want to be able to serve both of them. And so your homepage is kind of the exception. Like folks have probably heard the advice, like each page should have one call to action, like one main thing. And that the homepage is an exception to that because it's like a magazine cover. And heroes section being the above the fold. When you land on a website, the first thing you see, it really should speak to multiple types of potential customers. So 2 buttons.
Okay.
You should have reviews on your homepage, right? You need those trust signals. You should have a services overview section that links to your main services explicitly, right? So rather than just describing them, as an example on, like, I come from a personal training background, my personal training website, on the homepage, I listed postpartum personal training with a link, pregnancy personal training with a link, birth doula support with a link, right? All your major services with their complete names should be linked from the homepage. And then, yes, talking about your location where you can, right? Do we want to get into that? Like, how to use?
Yeah, I think my next question is like, how do therapists use like the location-based keywords without sounding crazy or spammy?
Yeah. And first, like, let me tell you just like what not to do. Like, if you were to use a location word in a sentence, and if you were to read that sentence out loud, it doesn't sound like something you would say to a friend. Like, don't use it that way on your website. Okay.
Okay. Good advice.
I am a Seattle myofascial release therapist practicing in Seattle, helping Seattle clients eliminate their chronic pain, right? Like, don't do that.
While drinking Seattle's best
like
coffee.
Don't do that. And the other thing not to do is to, flood your footer with a million neighborhoods, right? That's the other thing not to do when you're doing local SEO. But you could, in your headline, say something like myofascial release therapy in Portland, Oregon. That is a perfectly acceptable place. You do not have to put it in the homepage headline, right? That's a choice. I mean, you can say, I provide myofascial release therapy in Portland to help active adults and professionals manage chronic pain. That's a sentence you would say to someone, right? So that's a natural place to include it. You can use it in your about section. Like, I've been serving clients in the Seattle area for 10 plus years, et cetera, et cetera. That's a very natural place to use it. And then, of course, like on your services page, there's easy places. My favorite trick, well, there's two other places where you can seed these words. One is in image file names. Your image file names should always have human readable, keyword rich names. So bonus tip there, no img_12345.jpg, but maybe Heather Hamill myofascial release whatever town you're in. Cannot remember. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But
I'm in La Crescent, Minnesota, the big town up.
You can put the name in the image file name. But my favorite, and this ties together so many pieces of the SEO, is when you're including reviews on your website. You have a beautiful review, you put it on the homepage, people will attribute it to Jane D, right? And instead, add their location. So Jane D, Bellevue, Washington. Include the location next to the names underneath all of your testimonials, because those are incredibly natural ways.
So even if it's anonymous, you can just put like a town underneath it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Easy. Okay.
And let me add one more to this. Embed a Google map on your contact page. Not on your homepage, because embeds slow things down. You don't want to slow down your homepage, but on your contact page, include a Google map.
Okay. Love that. All right. Now I kind of want to talk about blogging. And I think that, for people that love creating content, like you and I, we're content creators. Like, that's part of our business, just based on the digital businesses that we have. Not everybody feels that way. Some people get overwhelmed by the term blogging. Do local businesses actually need blogs, in your opinion, to rank? Or are there simpler content strategies that still work? What say you?
As much as it pains me, because I love a good blog so much. I don't think a blog is technically mandatory for a local business if your other core assets are really strong. Okay, so if your Google business profile is great, if your website is otherwise like it loads quickly, it's got the right words, you've got your service page set up, right? If you've done all the other basics well, if you're collecting reviews, if you're getting links from other websites back to your own, you're building that brand reputation. If you're doing all these other things for local SEO, the blog is less important. But I can't, because I love a blog, I'm just going to say blogging can really help in specific ways. And blogging for a business owner doesn't mean you need to be putting out daily or weekly blogs. Okay. But having a little bit of long form content on your website is so helpful because it creates keyword opportunities. It creates backdoors into your website. It is more opportunities to get found. And so it's also an opportunity, your services page, your homepage, that's there for people who know that they want a myofascial release therapist. They're Googling myofascial release therapist near me. Okay. But what about people who are Googling their symptoms or Googling problems that myofascial release can support? You're not capturing those people. And by putting a blog on your website, and one thing we'll talk about in the workshop or in a few weeks is exactly what we call top of funnel questions that really work well in a blog, what those look like, what types of questions to answer there. So a blog isn't technically necessary, but it's always going to be helpful.
Well, and it's also somewhere where you can send your clients that actually come to you and become clients and want to be consumers of your content, and they want more and more and more because they're very interested. That's where you can send them. And so you don't have to spend an hour talking to them in your office. You can be like, oh, just go to my blog. I've got a paper on that.
Yeah. Or, if there's a question you're answering over and over again, easy, send them there. If there's a resource on other people's websites you're sending them to, create it on your own. So you're keeping people in your own ecosystem. And I'll tell you that in my personal training business, I close most of my meet and greets because people know me before we get on the call. A lot of people find me through that blog. And so by the time we get to the meet and greet, they know me.
Yeah. Yes.
You did ask.
Can I ask you one other question though? This is just top of mind. What I'm seeing, not necessarily in the clients that I work with, but in the clients before they work with me, their websites are almost like a tribute to John Barnes, who they get their training through, which is, it's so nice to acknowledge the founder of the modality and the contributions that he's made for this modality and how many people it's helped. But one thing I'm noticing is that when they're making that page all about him, it misses the mark on seeing the client. What would be your opinion on that, on having that?
Your website needs to be about your clients and their problems, not about the person who developed the modality. And you want to be seen as the authority. You want to own that authoritative position. And so you need to be creating content that's your own, your own IP. And so I would advise, it's okay to mention it once or twice, but honestly, your clients don't care who created it.
Yeah. Well, and they're linking back to his website and his materials too. So it's kind of outsourcing the responsibility for talking about.
Yeah. And at some point you get to talk about your own clinical experience.
Yeah.
When you're speaking from clinical experience, part of that is the information you've learned from a course, but part of that is your experience from working with clients over whatever period of time. And, part of being a thought leader, part of building topical authority is making your experience, your expertise, your perspectives, your hot takes, all of that should be showing up in your content, right? So it shouldn't all be about John Barnes taught me this. It should be in my 10 plus years of working with clients, I have observed, I have learned, I've experienced. We're talking about specific case studies. So as much as you can, highlight your own experience. I think Pilates instructors are over attributing Pilates to the guy that founded Pilates, right? Because the people who go to class don't care. They truly don't care. That's my advice. Make it about you, make it about your clients, but don't make it about John Barnes.
Yeah. I think it's totally fine to acknowledge that was your training and have it obvious that you're a John Barnes trained therapist, but it doesn't have to be your website's complete personality.
I think that's where you leave it. I'm a John Barnes trained therapist.
Yeah.
okay, we don't need to talk about him anymore.
Yeah, this is a very hot take. I hope people aren't offended, but if you are, like, just really listen to this messaging of like, I'm not saying anything against John or like even acknowledging him because I think all of it is great. It's just a matter of like, at a certain point, you've got to take the authority over your business and over helping your clients. And sometimes when we leave all of this information about him on your website, it confuses people. They might even think they're coming in to see him the way some of these websites are laid out. And it's like, no, they're coming in to see you.
Yeah.
You're the therapist. You're trained in this.
Yeah. And I think for anyone who's been in business any amount of time, who's gotten any kind of like business coaching at some level, that clients don't care about your qualifications as much as you do.
Yeah, true.
Right. To you, it's really important that you have this John Barnes certified or affiliated training.
Yeah.
But your clients just care that you're a myofascial release therapist and that you have this skill. They assume if you're providing it, that you are qualified. And they don't know the difference between different training programs. So again, it's fine to list it. And look, like, I love certifications and continuing education and all that stuff. And I do put it on my website, but I actually put it on a separate page because I know most people don't care about it. I've gotten asked a handful of times over the years what my qualifications are. Most people do not think about it, do not care.
Yeah. And it's just such an interesting question anyway, like where it's coming from. So, okay, good. I'm glad we covered that. It's been something that's kind of been on my mind lately when I'm like mainly when I'm looking to refer people. And unfortunately, this is all part of my mission of making MFR mainstream, but unfortunately, MFR therapists are notorious for keeping themselves hidden. And that's, part of the goal of like putting this podcast out here with these simple tips and with doing this training inside the program with more information is to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen, because we're almost our worst enemies in keeping MFR from becoming mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately. Okay. Let's talk about some practical wins for busy MFR practitioners. So if a therapist only had 30 minutes a week to work on SEO, where should they focus that time for the maximum impact? Have you ever wished your business felt more predictable? Like you could count on your income instead of crossing your fingers each month or worrying how you're going to always pay your bills? That's exactly what we do inside my Beyond 100K Mastermind. It's designed for MFR therapists who are already fully booked or pretty close and are ready for the next steps in creating a calm and profitable business. The promise is simple. In 6 months, you'll create at least 5 figures in extra profit and have the systems to keep repeating it. And here's the exciting part. I'm hosting a free live webinar called How to Build Predictable Profit in Unpredictable Times. You can join me Sunday, November 2nd in the afternoon or Wednesday, November 5th in the evening, whichever works better for your schedule. Can't make it live? Don't worry, you'll get the replay as long as you sign up. After the webinar, doors to the mastermind officially open and you'll be able to reserve your spot for the new round that starts in January. Go to themfrcoach.com/masterclass to save your seat today. Beyond 100K isn't just another program. It's where fully booked therapists learn how to build calm, repeatable profit without working more hours. And I'd love for you to be a part of it.
Google business profile maintenance, other than reviews. Post a quick update, like use that update feature or add a question to the Q&As. Or add a photo, but keep your Google business profile with some type of content. Super quick. The third thing you could focus on is brand reputation building. This is something we haven't gotten into a ton, but your brand reputation matters, and that encompasses backlinks, links from other websites to your website. So you could use that time for networking, like send an email to a local allied practitioner. If they have a resource page, see if you can develop a relationship with them so you can get on that page, pitch a podcast, search for high quality industry specific directories like Heather. You have a directory, correct? Local chamber of commerces, any other local business groups. You could spend some of that time looking for those opportunities to get links and exposure back to your business.
I think that feels good and easy. And also, I'd love to put the bug out to people to be like, pitch podcasts,
Yeah.
pitch local podcasts in your area, just see what's available and ask to be on their show and present yourself as an expert. People are interested and you are interesting. And I think it's worth the ask,
And especially when you say an issue that you run into with your students, because you're obviously in a position to know pain points really are for your folks. If they're keeping themselves hidden, if you are keeping yourself hidden, getting on a podcast is the absolute best way to start getting visible. You develop a relationship with the person who hosts the podcast, right? And now they can refer you. You're getting in front of their audience. Now all these other people know about you. You're going to get a link back to your website, which supports your long-term SEO. There's so many ways that getting on a podcast impacts your visibility. And so I really, really encourage you, even if you're an introvert, even if it sounds really hard, I promise you, speaking as an introverted introvert, that you can do this and it gets easier over time.
Yes, it does. And there's lots of podcast people with YouTube channels or whatever that are very health focused where you can just.
I mean, one of my first podcasts I was ever on as a personal trainer was a local physical therapist who interviewed other local business owners. It was an entirely local, like Seattle area. It was all businesses that served moms, right? That was the theme. These exist.
Love it.
And they're so low pressure, right? It's not like pitching a giant podcast with some huge audience where you feel like you're standing up there in your underwear, like feel really small and intimate and casual. And you feel like you're talking to the people you want to work with. And you know how to do that.
Exactly. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. I think like the price for visibility is your willingness to be uncomfortable. And the more visible you are, the more people can see you and find you and come and pay you money.
Absolutely.
And get really good results, which is, yeah. So how can therapists measure whether their SEO is working beyond just, I think I'm busier? Like what metrics should they track? Does this matter? Like what's your take on that?
I love a good KPI. So if you've got your Google business profile set up, it has insights that you can look at, right? So you can see if you're getting more website visits or phone calls from your Google business profile. And if you're maintaining that those numbers should be going up. And on the flip side of that, you should be feeling it, right? Are you getting more phone calls? Are you getting more inquiries? Are you getting more bookings? And I would encourage folks to have a question on their contact forms or on their intake forms. How did you find me? And that will also tell you over time if your SEO is making a difference. Now there's, kind of bigger tools like Google Analytics or Google Search Console for those who are a little bit more tech inclined. In there, you can watch things like traffic, impressions, the type of keywords that you're showing up for. I would argue that these days, website traffic is not a great metric only because with all the privacy laws, the numbers aren't super accurate. But things like impressions are pretty good. So like how often is your website being seen? And the one I really like is keywords, like what keywords is your website showing up for? Because if you are just starting an SEO journey, for lack of a better word, your website's probably not ranking for a lot of relevant terms right now. And as you make improvements to your website, you should see that new queries are populating the list, right? That people are finding you for more relevant things, for more things. But really, I think it's the conversions. Are you getting more clients from Google? And the best way to know that is to ask them where they're finding you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if we're talking about like a long-term strategy or kind of like having a competitive edge, what do you think solo MFR therapists can do to stand out against, maybe a larger clinic or people doing other modalities in their area so they show up in those local searches?
Yeah. So again, getting really, really clear, getting really, really specific with the words on your page. So if you specialize in myofascial release for gosh, I don't know exactly how this would be phrased, but the person you referenced earlier, myofascial release for speech pathology, there's probably a different way to phrase that. That's a little more like voice of customer, but having that on your website is going to differentiate you from a large physical therapy clinic that offers myofascial release therapy as one of its 16 modalities in its dropdown, right? Yeah. Your reviews are going to make you stand out. Asking people to be really specific in the reviews. So when you ask for reviews as well, you can provide some guidelines, which people actually appreciate. I think a lot of times people don't leave a review because they don't know how to. So you can say like, here are some examples of reviews, or in your review, please mention the type of service, the type of problem, the type of transformation. Like you can ask for those things. Make sure you're showing your face. This goes back to visibility, right? And it goes back to Google Business Profile, it goes back to your website. Make sure you're showing your face, your clinic, your treatment rooms, so people get a sense of you, because it's the personal connection, right? Is what you can leverage over a larger clinic. People aren't buying a brand, they're buying you. And then I really would encourage folks, if you are competing, if you're in the position where you're competing with a larger clinic, lean into that blog content a little bit. Answer some of those questions that folks are typing into Google at 2 a.m. when their problem is keeping them awake. Answer some of those questions, create more opportunities for your website to surface in search results and to come out ahead.
I love that. This, we kind of answered this before, but for those that think SEO can feel slow, how long should a brick and mortar practice expect to wait before seeing results? And how can they stay consistent without burning out? Is that even related to SEO? I don't know.
Yeah, no, well, of course it's related. And again, I'm going to treat that as two questions. So let's say that most local practices will start seeing traction between 3 and 6 months if they're, consistently up, like being consistent, updating their Google Business Profile, making those changes to their website. If they're in a market that's really small and they do a really good job, maybe they'll see some traction on those local listings even sooner. In a competitive market, it might take longer. It might take 6 to 12 months, right? But local SEO works faster than broad reach SEO. So my online businesses, I would say, definitely don't expect anything for 6 to 12 months. I would expect something much quicker for a local business. Yeah. And truly the Google Business Profile is this underleveraged, underappreciated like SEO superpower. You're going to see the quickest wins with that. So really make sure you're leaning into that for like the fastest impacts. Oh, and then you asked about how to stay consistent without burning out. Micro habits, right? So think about, like, I liked how you asked me, what can a time-strapped business owner do, right? Like, what can you do in 30 minutes a week? So maybe block like 10 minutes a week for making sure you've followed up and asked for reviews, or block 10 minutes to make a quick update to your Google Business Profile, right? Can you block small bits of time? Maybe you do it right after lunch on Wednesdays or something, right? Like block a small bit of time where you just go and you take care of some of these tasks, batch tasks. I mean, these are going to just be kind of like your generic productivity tools, right? Batch your tasks. So if you're going to make a Google Business Profile or Google My Business, it used to be Google Business Profile. Or no, now it's Google Business Profile. It used to be Google My Business. They change the name all the time. If you're making a post for your Google profile, batch it.
Yeah.
So make 3, not 1, and then you can maybe release 1 a week or something. But really, like, think about this as a long-term process. Like, don't put the pressure on yourself to be getting clients from this next week if you're just starting today. Take that pressure off of yourself. Okay, it's a marathon, right? And I think as someone who is in health and wellness, as someone who works in physicality, like, you understand the concept of like a marathon versus a sprint. Right. And this is a marathon. If you miss a week of doing your SEO, it's not like missing a week of social media. If, you're relying on social media for leads, it is a long-term marketing asset. And so, you're going to have weeks where you miss, right? You're going to have weeks where you feel super inspired and you do more. Just don't put the pressure on yourself to get the overnight clients from it.
Yeah. I think I would add too, like there doesn't have to be any sort of perfection around any of this. It's like pick something like the Google profile and like zhuzh it up a little bit. Decide what you post on Instagram. You're also going to post to Google. There's some differences in like how many letters you can use or whatever, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel for everywhere that you post.
Yeah. I mean, again, health and wellness audience, right? I mean, it's like when you give your clients advice about exercise, it's better to do a quick workout than no workout. Like the quick workout you do 3 times a week is better than the 60-minute intense workout you do like once a month, right? So those just break it up into whatever is manageable, right? Because it's all cumulative. None of it is a lost effort. So, the little bits that you can do, you get to keep. You get to keep them. So just little bits.
That's so good. Is there anything that you wished I would have asked you or anything you can think of that we should still talk about before we end this episode?
Oh my gosh, I feel like we covered so much, Heather. Why don't we use this space to just reiterate a couple of things? I just want to remind folks to go and double check that Google business profile and make sure it is fully filled out, that they've filled out the services. Make sure there's nothing new options that have been added since they last touched it. To go check their website, make sure they're using the words myofascial release in all the right places. And if they do, like I know you said a lot of your students are and your listeners are people with a dedicated MFR practice, but if it is one service out of multiple modalities, make sure you have a dedicated service page for it. And make sure you're collecting reviews. Make sure you're collecting those reviews. So I think those are, those kind of cover like the biggest mistakes and the most important spots to highlight for your folks and the things that I really want them to take away from this.
Yeah, perfect. Do you want to talk about the really generous item that you are offering to people that are listening?
Yes, absolutely. So I would love to offer your folks a resource called SEO Simplified, which is a keyword research workbook that will help them identify the words that are going to attract their ideal clients to their website. So when we talk about these, in particular, these top of funnel keywords, things that are going to be really great to use in the blog posts, in the FAQs, this workbook takes you through a process of brainstorming those, but then it also goes a little further in helping you figure out how to validate them, make sure those are keywords worth using for your practice, your business. It'll show you which pages they belong on and then where on the page to put them. Okay. And I've made that available at laurajawadmarketing.com/MFR coach, all one word.
Okay. And we'll put the clickable link in the show notes. So for anyone who wants the clickable link, it doesn't have to remember that URL. We'll have it in the show notes. Yeah. Okay, great. So for my listeners, if you're listening to this and thinking, I need more of this in my business, this is exactly the type of advanced practical training inside my foundations program that all of the students get. Laura will be walking them through step-by-step, optimizing their online presence so clients can actually find them. If you want access to this training and trainings like this, you'll want to check out my foundations program by going to the mfrcoach.com/foundation and join us today. For everyone else, thanks for listening today. Thanks, Laura, for being here. And we will see you on another episode of the MFR Coaches Podcast next week. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the MFR Coaches Podcast. If you're ready to grow your myofascial release practice, make sure to sign up for my next free training. These live webinars are designed to help you take real steps towards building a fully booked, profitable business. You can save your seat and find the latest dates at the mfrcoach.com/webinar. And if you're looking for more support, the Foundations program is now open year-round. Inside, you'll get coaching, tools, and community to help you get fully booked and stay that way without burning out. One last thing before you go. My brand new book, Your MFR Practice Starts Here, is now available. It's a must-read for any MFR therapist who wants to build a business that actually works. You can grab your copy on Amazon and get your companion guide by going to themfrcoach.com/book. Start implementing right away. I'll see you in the next episode.